When grocery prices start getting away from people, the problem usually is not one single expensive item. It is the drift. A box of cereal here, a snack pack there, a prepared lunch, a bag of frozen convenience food, a few drinks, a specialty yogurt cup, a produce item that goes soft before you get to it. By the end of the week, the cart is full and the pantry is crowded, but the meals still feel uncertain. So today, I want to do something practical. Build a core grocery basket of 18 items that can cover most breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and snacks for one older adult living on a fixed budget. For a one-person U.S. household age 55 and up, a strict home-cooked grocery target often lands somewhere around the mid-60s to upper 70s a week, depending on local prices, appetite, and the kind of meals you actually make. That is not a law. It is a benchmark. And if your current spending is well above that, the biggest savings usually come from changing the meal pattern, not from chasing coupons on tiny items. Ruth and I have seen this over and over. If you plan meals first, check what is already in the fridge and pantry, and then buy only the missing quantities, you can cut waste without feeling deprived. The opposite approach is what drains money. People shop as if they are stocking a magazine photo shoot, then wonder why they have half a bag of onions, 3 yogurt cups, and nothing that turns into dinner. Let's start with the first item, because breakfast is where a lot of unnecessary spending begins. Old-fashioned rolled oats are one of the strongest grocery savings in the whole store. They replace boxed cereal, breakfast bars, and those little instant oatmeal packets that look cheap until you compare the price per ounce. Buy a large store brand container or bag and compare unit price, not just shelf price. Rolled oats can become plain oatmeal, overnight oats, baked oats, or even a binder in meatloaf and meatballs. One inexpensive package can create many breakfasts, especially if you add a banana, a spoon of peanut butter, or a little yogurt. The mistake is buying flavored packets loaded with sugar and paying extra for individual wrapping. Those are convenience products, not the best value oats. If you are eating oatmeal 3 or 4 mornings a week, the savings are meaningful, and the food stays useful for months if stored dry. Eggs belong on the list for a different reason. They are one of the easiest low-cost proteins to use quickly. In June 2026, U.S. averages were about $2.14 a dozen, and Canadian averages were around $4.85 a dozen, though local pricing can vary a lot. Eggs can replace breakfast meat, prepared breakfast sandwiches, and some of the more expensive proteins in lunch and dinner dishes. You can boil them, scramble them, make omelets, put them in sandwiches, use them in fried rice, or fold them into a vegetable frittata. They are quick, and for many households that speed matters because a cheap food you will not cook is not really cheap in practice. The limitation is simple. Do not buy oversized cartons unless you will use them before they spoil, and refrigerate them promptly. If your appetite or refrigerator space is small, a dozen at a time is often smarter than a giant club-size pack. Plain yogurt is another item that quietly pulls weight in several parts of the menu. It replaces flavored yogurt cups, snack desserts, sour cream, and some expensive snack packs. Large tubs usually have a better unit value than individual cups, and if you want to watch sugar, plain is the one to buy. You can eat it with oats, stir it into sauces, use it as a dip, top baked potatoes with it, or mix it with fruit. If you need lactose-free yogurt, that is a legitimate exception, and it may cost more. Same with medically required diets. For everyone else, the main mistake is paying dessert prices for a food that should be a basic protein or breakfast ingredient. Plain yogurt does several jobs well, but only if you like the taste enough to use it before it expires. Now let's talk about the protein item that can change a grocery budget all by itself. Chicken. Whole chicken or bone-in chicken legs often give far better value than boneless breasts, deli chicken, frozen entrees, or beef. In June 2026, U.S. average prices were approximately $1.69 a pound for chicken legs, $2.04 a pound for whole chicken, and $4.18 a pound for boneless breasts. That gap matters. It matters more than whether you save 20 cents on mustard. And to put the meat comparison in perspective, U.S. ground beef was averaging about $7.14 a pound around that same period. So if a household chooses beef out of habit, the bill can rise very fast. Roast a whole chicken once, then use leftovers in soup, sandwiches, rice, or casseroles. Save the bones if you cook that way and make stock, because that extends the value further. The limitation is practical. If the sale price difference between bone-in and boneless is tiny, paying for a lot of bone or skin may not be worth it for every household. But when the spread is normal, this is one of the biggest savings on the entire list. Canned tuna or sardines are there for convenience that still respects the budget. They replace deli meat, prepared seafood, and restaurant lunches. The price comparison is not just the can size, compare drained weight. That tells you how much actual food you are getting. Tuna and sardines can become sandwiches, salads, fish cakes, pasta dishes, or rice bowls. They are shelf-stable, which means they can save you from emergency takeout on days when you did not thaw anything or the fresh meat turned out to be a little too fresh. A good habit here is to rotate seafood types and choose lower sodium versions when you need them. Some people prefer tuna, some sardines, some salmon, and that is fine. The main point is to have one inexpensive protein that does not depend on the fridge and can be turned into a meal in minutes. Dried lentils are one of the best answers to expensive ground meat in soups, stews, sauces, and casseroles. They usually offer better value than prepared lentil meals, and they cook much faster than many dry beans. You can put them straight into tomato sauce, curry, soup, or rice dishes. They stretch meat when you want meat, or replace it on meatless nights. They also add fiber, which helps many people feel full longer. The caution is real. If you are not used to them, introduce larger portions gradually so your digestion has time to adjust. That is not a reason to avoid them. It is just part of using beans and lentils comfortably. If a person tries to jump straight from low-fiber convenience food to a big bowl of lentil soup, the stomach may complain loudly. Beans deserve their own spot because they do a different job from lentils in everyday cooking. They replace some meat, canned chili, frozen burritos, and packaged side dishes. Dry beans are usually the cheapest form, but canned beans are still worth buying when convenience is what keeps you from ordering takeout. I would rather see someone rinse a can of beans and make chili than let a pot of dry beans sit untouched for 6 months while they buy restaurant lunches. Beans can become chili, soups, salads, wraps, or mashed bean sandwiches. They bring protein and fiber, and they store well. If sodium is a concern, rinse the canned beans. That removes some of the salty liquid. If you have kidney restrictions or other medically prescribed limits, those matter more than any grocery rule, and the meal plan has to fit your health needs first. Rice is another foundation food that turns a few ingredients into a full meal. In June 2026, average U.S. long-grain rice prices were about $1.09 a pound, and Canadian pricing was roughly $9 and 82 cents per 2 kilograms, though Canada varies by region and package size more than people expect. Rice replaces boxed side dishes, microwave rice cups, and takeout rice. It works in bowls, soups, casseroles, fried rice, and side dishes. One reason rice saves money is that it makes smaller amounts of meat and vegetables feel complete. A little chicken and a spoonful of vegetables over rice is a meal. The same food without the rice sometimes feels skimpy and leads people to buy more. The mistake is cooking a huge batch and letting it sit in the refrigerator too long. Cook what you can use soon, cool leftovers promptly, and store them safely. Rice is cheap, but food safety still matters. Potatoes are one of the most practical foods on earth, especially for older adults who want filling meals without much hassle. They replace frozen fries, instant sides, and packaged breakfast potatoes. Compare loose potatoes with bagged prices and inspect bags for damage. They can be baked, roasted, mashed, added to soup, or used in skillet meals. They are inexpensive, filling, and flexible. Store them cool and dark, away from onions, and toss any that are green or heavily sprouted. A few sprouts are not the same as a whole spoiled potato, but green or badly damaged potatoes should not be eaten. I like potatoes because they do not ask for much. They are not glamorous, they just turn into dinner. Whole grain bread is on the list because it keeps simple meals from turning into restaurant spending. It replaces bakery purchases, breakfast pastries, and deli sandwiches. One very useful habit is freezing half the loaf immediately in one or two slice portions. That way, you are not racing spoilage, and you can still pull out bread as needed. Bread can become toast, sandwiches, breadcrumbs, French toast, or a soup side. Premium artisan labels do not automatically mean better nutrition, and they certainly do not guarantee better value. If the loaf costs twice as much and mostly gives you a different crust shape, that is not a frugal buy. Whole grain bread is at its best when it is ordinary, useful, and stored wisely. Peanut butter is another backup meal in a jar. It replaces snack bars, deli meat, and expensive nut snack packs. Large containers can save money, but only if you actually use them before the quality declines. Peanut butter can go on toast, in oatmeal, with fruit, in simple sauces, or in sandwiches. It is shelf-stable and requires no cooking, which is a real advantage for people who have days when the kitchen needs to be as simple as possible. The caution is obvious but important. Portion it carefully and avoid it if allergies apply. Peanut butter can be a fine budget food, but not if somebody in the household cannot safely eat it. For the people who can, it is one of the most useful low-cost calories in the store. Frozen mixed vegetables are the practical answer to the problem of produce that spoils before you finish it. They replace fresh vegetables that go bad, premium steam-and-bag blends, and prepared side dishes. Buy plain store-brand vegetables without sauce. That keeps the cost down and gives you more control over the meal. You can add them directly to soups, rice, omelets, pasta, and casseroles. The value is in the nearly zero trimming waste and the long freezer life. The main limitation is freezer space and reliable electricity. A large bag is not a bargain if you do not have room or if you live where power interruptions are common enough to threaten the contents. In that case, smaller bags are better. A frozen vegetable that gets used is frugal. A bargain bag that sits forgotten behind a bag of ice is not. Cabbage is one of the best vegetables for stretching a grocery dollar without feeling like you are eating poverty food. It replaces bagged salad kits and expensive delicate greens. Buy it by weight and avoid pre-shredded packages unless the convenience is really worth the extra cost to you. Cabbage can become slaw, stir-fry, soup, roasted wedges, or sandwich topping. It stores longer than most leafy greens and works raw or cooked. That makes it a very old-fashioned, very modern budget food. The one limitation I always mention is that a whole head may be too much for someone who dislikes repeated meals. If you are cooking for one and know you will not finish it, choose a smaller head or a half head if the store offers it. There is no prize for buying more cabbage than you can reasonably eat. Carrots are another hearty, useful vegetable. They replace baby carrots, prepared vegetable trays, and packaged snacks. Whole-bagged carrots generally offer better value than peeled versions. They can be eaten raw, used in soups, roasted, added to stews, grated into sauces, or cut into slaw. Carrots store well and fit into many dishes without much effort. The only caution is storage. Do not buy bulk quantities if you do not have refrigerator space. Like cabbage, carrots are valuable because they are adaptable. They do not need a recipe to be useful. You can put them in the soup pot or peel a few and eat them with lunch. Onions are one of the cheapest ways to make inexpensive food taste less repetitive. They replace pre-made sauces, seasoning packets, and frozen chopped onions. Bags can be worthwhile, but only if you store them dry and ventilated. Put them in a cool, dry place away from potatoes. They are a flavor base for soups, beans, eggs, rice, potatoes, and chicken. If your food budget feels boring, onions may be part of the solution. They are not exciting on their own, but they make almost everything else more satisfying. The main mistake is keeping them in a damp cupboard or piling them next to potatoes, which shortens storage life. A little care there goes a long way. Bananas are the fruit I recommend most often for pure practical value. In June 2026, U.S. averages were about $0.65 a pound, and Canadian averages were around $1 and 88 cents a kilogram. Bananas replace desserts, snack bars, smoothie packs, and expensive out-of-season fruit. They need no preparation. You can eat them as a snack, slice them into oatmeal or yogurt, put them on toast, or freeze them for later use. A smart way to buy them is to choose different ripeness levels rather than one completely ripe bunch. That prevents waste and gives you fruit for more than one day. Bananas are cheap, but they spoil quickly if you buy too many at once and then forget them. For a one-person household, a small amount twice a week is often better than a giant bunch once a week. Apples, or the cheapest durable seasonal fruit, take the last fruit spot because this is where local pricing matters. Apples replace fruit cups, juice, desserts, and highly perishable berries. Compare price per pound or kilogram and switch varieties according to sales. Apples work raw, in oatmeal, in yogurt, in salads, or baked. Their big advantage is storage life. You are much less likely to throw away a bruised apple than a box of delicate berries that turn soft in 2 days. But do not insist on apples if oranges, pears, or another durable fruit are substantially cheaper where you live. That is one of the easiest mistakes to avoid. The right fruit is the one you will actually eat before it spoils. The last item is canned tomatoes, and this one deserves more attention than people give it. Canned tomatoes replace jarred pasta sauce, prepared soup, pre-made chili, and takeout pasta. Store-brand whole or diced tomatoes are usually more flexible than specialty sauces. With one can, you can make soup, lentils, beans, rice dishes, pasta sauce, or chicken dishes. It is one of the easiest ways to turn pantry ingredients into something that feels like a real meal. Watch sodium if that matters for your diet, and avoid any can that is damaged, bulging, or leaking. That is not a bargain. That is a food safety problem. Canned tomatoes are a pantry anchor because they make the rest of the cheap foods taste complete. Now, the big picture. This list works because it is not trying to eliminate variety completely. It is trying to reduce useless variety. The regular basket gives you breakfast options with oats, eggs, yogurt, peanut butter, bread, and bananas. Lunch becomes sandwiches, tuna salad, bean bowls, leftovers, or soup. Dinner can be chicken, rice, potatoes, lentils, beans, and vegetables with tomatoes and onions for flavor. Snacks are fruit, yogurt, toast, peanut butter, or hard-boiled eggs. That is a respectable menu without turning your kitchen into a complicated project. But there is a very important step before you buy any of it. Plan the meals first, inventory the refrigerator and pantry, then purchase only the missing quantities. I cannot stress that enough. The common mistake is buying all 18 items every week just because they are on a list. If you already have rice, oats, beans, peanut butter, or canned tomatoes at home, buying them again is not frugal. It is just creating a crowded cabinet. Another mistake is treating the list as permission to buy unlimited amounts because something is inexpensive. Cheap food still costs money, and unused food is expensive food. You also have to respect safety and storage. Refrigerate poultry, eggs, yogurt, and cooked leftovers promptly. Follow medically prescribed sodium, sugar, kidney, allergy, or texture restrictions. If you need pre-cut produce because of hand strength, if you need lactose-free foods, if you need low-sodium products, or if cooking independently is unsafe, then the more expensive option may be the right one. Frugality should not punish mobility, health, or safety. The same goes for freezer space. If you rarely cook, have very limited freezer room, or keep throwing leftovers away, this method may not be worth much for you. In that case, it may be better to simplify in a different direction, such as buying a few good prepared items instead of many ingredients that never get used. For Canadian viewers, one caution matters a lot. Do not simply convert a US budget into Canadian dollars and assume the same shopping cart. Regional Canadian prices vary, and Statistics Canada warns against assuming identical product quality, package sizes, or provincial pricing. In plain English, the numbers help you think, but your local stores decide the real bill. So, what kind of savings can this produce? I would not promise a universal number because households cook differently and prices vary. But if a shopper drops from spending about $100 a week on groceries to about $70 by using this kind of core basket, that is a savings of $30 a week or about $1,560 a year. Some households will save less, some will save more. If you cut out takeout, convenience snacks, and impulse items, the weekly difference can be larger. The biggest savings usually come from changing protein choices, reducing spoilage, and buying fewer prepared foods. That is why the ground beef versus chicken legs comparison matters so much. A few pounds of protein can outweigh a whole cart of tiny coupon decisions. For the right household, this is a very strong system. It fits one or two person homes that are willing to cook simple meals and reuse ingredients across several dishes. It works especially well when money is tight, but the person still wants to eat well. It works less well when someone wants endless variety, rarely cooks, or has no place to store ingredients safely. And it absolutely does not mean you can never buy anything else. It means your pantry should have a reliable foundation, and the extras should earn their place. If you want to start today, pull out the last 4 grocery receipts and circle every purchase that did not fit a planned meal, an essential staple, or a genuine dietary need. That one exercise will tell you more than a dozen shopping hacks. Then build your next list around the missing parts of this basket, not around the feeling that the pantry should be full. If this kind of practical grocery breakdown helps you, I hope you'll subscribe because there are plenty more places where ordinary households can spend less without living worse. And I'd like to hear from you. Which one of these 18 items is already a regular buy in your kitchen? And which one do you think would save you the most if you started using it every week?